Athletes organization and influencer founder Jim Cavale joins us to break down every aspect of NIL and talk about the Nico Iamaleava situation. So hit that subscribe button. We got a great one for you. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Locker Room Talk. Appreciate you guys joining us. And we always try and line up some of the best guests for the specific topic that we're going to be talking about on a Locker Room Talk show. And I don't think we could have brought in a better guy to talk about the current state of NIL and college athletics, kind of what's going on or what went on with Nico in Tennessee, and just get some perspective of not only where we're at, but where we are possibly going. I mean, this guy's influencer founder, the athletes organization. He's just one of the top dogs in a lot of different spaces, but in the collegiate NIL space. Our friend Jim Cavale. Jim, what's up, dude?
Yes, sir.
Good to see you coming to the studio.
What's up?
This place is nice, man. Like,
Yeah.
you guys got a great setup, and I couldn't be happier that this worked out. This is going to be a fun conversation. Love your guys' stuff. Always watching it. So it's cool to be here in the studio that I always see you in.
Well, man, look, we're so honored to have you in the dojo, as we call it. We always say we have the best studio at the Daily Wire. Like, I don't care what anybody else says. We think it's the best. And, you know, obviously where you've risen to in a lot of different aspects, but in this space specifically, you know, you're a guy that a lot of people look to for, you know, to kind of see where things are moving. Because I think, Jim, one of the best things you do is you put it all in perspective. It's not just from one side. And I think we have too much of that going on right now in the college athletic space and the NIL space. So I just want to start with where you think NIL is right now before we get into the Nico situation, and just how you feel about kind of this moment we're at that seems just really controversial in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the current situation can be described as there are no rules. There is no system. A lot of people will say, oh, the portal starts tomorrow. There is no portal. Yeah. You can unenroll and enroll at any school anytime you want. You can't have rules right now, and that's where we are. And so when a guy holds out, unlike the NFL, where he would be fined, and he would not be able to just go to any other team. He'd have to figure it out with the team he's holding out with. In college, you can hold out and use that to get a deal with any other team and get away with it. And that's how college athletics is performing right now as an industry. And so there are no rules. That's the first place to start with the present state of NIL and college athletics. And then the second thing that's really, really important for everyone to understand is we're disguising pay for play as NIL.
Yeah.
It's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's not true. There's no leader that can look in the mirror, athletic director, president, commissioner, these are very integral people. I know many of them very well. You are not telling the truth when you look in the mirror saying this is NIL. You know it's pay for play. We all do. But because it's structured as NIL, you can't hold the athlete accountable to the pay. Yeah. And so a coach says, hey, come play quarterback here. We'll pay you $1 million. Well, the contract actually says we're paying you $1 million to do appearances at this thing and to do NIL endorsement stuff. And so how do you hold them accountable to how many games they played, how many touchdowns they threw, whether or not they got a bonus for going to the CFP? You can't, because it's not a performance contract. So that's the two things everyone needs to know is there are no rules, and we're disguising pay for play as NIL, and it's creating all the problems you're seeing.
Yeah, and it's something we've talked about. I mean, David, how many times have we brought up, you know, when they started talking about NIL, we were like, okay, so if Dr. Pepper wants to do a deal with Bryce Young, now that Bryce Young can have representation when he was at Alabama, well, Dr. Pepper's people call Bryce Young's people, they do a deal, congratulations. Well, you know, then we got the collectives and this new middleman
we always knew would happen.
Which we always knew would happen.
That's what was going to happen.
Yeah, but like the question now becomes, I mean, even before the specific instance of Nico, like, how does this get fixed? Does it have to come from the government, or does it have to be a breakaway from the NCAA where a super league is formed, and when you sign your letter of intent to play at one of the schools in that super league, you are agreeing to the formalities that super league has, so therefore you can't go sue them? Because this is all about just not getting sued, right, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only two solutions, and it's actually like there's 1A and 1B, and then number 2. So 1A is what they're fighting for right now. They were all just in D.C. last week, meaning the ADs and commissioners of the power conferences, and they're trying to ask for help from Congress to give them a codification of the House settlement with the ability to set the rest of the rules with an antitrust exemption that prevents them from getting sued for setting those rules and allows them to enforce those rules. The second, the 1B would be Congress helping them do all that, but allowing for collective bargaining without athletes being employees. And then the number 2 would be just unionize and make the football players employees, let them unionize and do collective bargaining as it's currently protected by the National Labor Relations Act, as it works in pro sports, the NFL or NBA or whatever league you want to use as an example. So that number 2 option is like the red button. Everybody is very scared of employment at the school level. Why? There's a lot of new costs that come with employment. First of all, everybody will be on minimum wage. They'll be paying payroll taxes. They'll be paying workers' comp. It is a multi-million dollar per school new cost, right? It's an 8-figure ad for that to happen. So they're very, very scared of that. But it's the cleanest way to do it because it already is protected by the law. If you make certain athletes employees and allow them to unionize, to collectively bargain around all these rules we need for transferring, for free agency, for compensation, for health and safety, then the rules are protected and there's no lawsuits, right? But they're asking for Congress to help because they don't want employment to happen and they want to be able to set rules without getting sued. And they've been doing that for a long time. And at some point, you got to ask yourself, is Congress ever going to help? Especially right now in the climate we're in.
For sure.
I mean, there could be a Republican bill for world peace. I don't know that 7 Democrats would vote for it on the Senate, right? So what are we doing here? We're waiting for an issue that's definitely not top of mind for Congress to have enough consensus to get the 60 votes and 212 votes it needs from the Senate and the House to be able to get through. And while all this is happening, we got a lot of new problems that are going to happen from the House settlement. A ton of them. Title IX issues, eligibility issues. Athletes are going to continue to want more years because they're going to argue it's earning potential that's being cut off by eligibility rules. The contracts are going to be disputed that the schools are now going to be doing from the House settlement with the athletes. So there's just going to be a lot more issues while they're waiting for Congress to help. And that's scary. And Olympic sports being lost is scary as well.
Well, can I ask one follow-up on that? If a group of people collectively bargains, aren't they by definition employees? I mean, can you collectively bargain and not be an employee? Aren't we just arguing over semantics at that point?
So that's where I said, 1A is Congress help us stop them from being employees, help us set all the rules, and help us with protection through an antitrust exemption. 1B is, okay, Congress, allow them to collectively bargain, but as non-employees, so that they
that's the part I don't know how that works.
Is that rev share? Is that where you could get a rev share possibly?
It depends on what they collectively bargain.
They'd be contractors. It's similar to how the Screen Actors Guild works. Okay. So SAG. So writers and actors and those folks have representation, but they're not employees. They're contractors. And ultimately, they're represented for all the different issues that they want to fight for through that organization.
Okay.
And so the government would still have to help if the athletes aren't employees but want to collectively bargain.
From the antitrust.
By providing a non-statutory labor exemption, sorry to get legal, but that's what they would have to provide so that an organization representing contractors could actually negotiate for the athletes. So it's quasi-collective bargaining. It's not pure collective bargaining. Pure collective bargaining would mean let the athletes who are going to bargain become employees, let them unionize, and actually bargain all the rules.
This is why it's just so nuts that they just let this out without having any guardrails or anything before it. I understand the pressure. Because, look, I believe in NIL. We all believe that athletes should get paid for their name, image, and likeness. I mean, we get paid for our name, image, and likeness. But, my contract here at the Daily Wire has clauses in it. I just can't go and do whatever I want to do in certain aspects. And that brings us into the Nico point.
Well, yeah, and I come from a place where college football is king. Everyone loves it. And I never met anyone who said, I love college football because the guys out there aren't getting paid, right? Yeah. These are pro-free market individuals who love college football. And I've been looking forward to this conversation with you for quite a while. So I started to make some notes. What are my thoughts on college athletics right now? And I came up with some stuff, and I don't want to miss anything. So I'm just going to kind of read from this list a little bit, and I want you to tell me where you agree or where you disagree. Okay. College athletics is losing its appeal with this country, in my opinion, because there is a blatant disrespect disregard for the most attractive aspect of the sport, which is the tradition. The frequent changes right now to the postseason, open transfer portal, et cetera. And I refuse to believe that tradition and money can't coexist because I just watched the 89th edition of the Masters. And there
a national treasure.
No brand who guards their tradition like that tournament. We have young athletes right now who've played for 4 different high schools in 4 years, 5 different college programs in 5 years. We are encouraging young men to run away and quit at the first sign of adversity when really your growth as an individual doesn't begin until you've experienced some adversity. And we're allowing them in many respects to get away with this under the guise of not being exploited or, hey, go get your bag. And the universities certainly haven't helped themselves because I think they've diluted their academic offerings in some respects to the point where diplomas mean very little.
Or the coaches have restricted certain majors to be studied because it conflicts with the schedule.
All of that stuff. And I lived through this at Michigan. Yeah. I had plenty of complaints. I wish I had gotten rich playing college football. I'm not, I really wish I had.
Sports management
I did
major.
Not. But no one is having an honest conversation with these young men about long-term financial success versus short-term gratification. I don't know if Congress can actually fix this. I don't know if the NCAA can fix it or if they don't want to. The coaches are just trying to get by and assemble a roster. And the main point is if we don't put forth leadership that can provide concrete solutions to these core problems, then college football and college athletics writ large will mean less to my son's generation than to our generation.
Yep.
Where do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, so listen, I think that all the points you make are really full of wisdom, right? Like the commitment aspect and pushing through adversity and the continuity aspect of being at one school and getting a degree and all of it. But the reality is to have academic requirements again, to have eligibility rules again, to have transfer rules again, these things and many others can be done, but they have to be done in a way where those rules are protected. Mm-hmm. And the only way that they can really be protected is if the athletes who are going to have to abide by those rules have a seat at the table to be able to put their stamp on it. And once they put their stamp on it, maybe it's a 4-year deal, maybe it's a 7-year deal, those are the rules and they can be governed and enforced. And now there are academic requirements that can be enforced. There are transfer rules that can be enforced, et cetera. And so to get back what you're talking about is possible, but the only way to do it is to operate like a multi-billion-dollar sports and entertainment business in America and collectively bargain the rules with the talent.
Yeah.
That's what you got to realize here. This is a serial antitrust violator. The NCAA and the conferences and the schools, a serial antitrust violator, meaning they're limiting free market.
Sure.
Okay? Mm-hmm. All right? Now, I know everybody here loves free markets and capitalism and opportunity and meritocracy. Yeah. All right? These are serial antitrust violators asking for an antitrust exemption, which is very unlikely to happen. And the way to get the antitrust protection is to do it the same way that the $10 billion a year MLB business does it, or the $20 billion a year NFL business does it. And that is through collective bargaining. And a lot of people are like, but this is college football. What about amateurism and all this stuff? And what I would say is, we've commercialized revenue in college football, but we haven't commercialized expenses. And when we commercialize expenses, that comes with paying talent, but also creating structure through collective bargaining. That's just how this works in America.
Yeah. This is why I said that the NCAA's worst decision was to not allow the individual athletes to go sign their own deals. It never made any sense that I couldn't, and look, I wasn't some sought after talent, but I could have done a local car dealership commercial with my hometown and made a little bit of extra money, which as an 18 to 22-year-old would have gone a long way. By them limiting that, then the floodgates just completely opened because the pay-for-play argument is what really everyone wanted to get to, and they were able to do that through name, image, and likeness.
Well, but here's the thing. Go back to what he said. He said he's got a contract here that has clauses in it, and if he violates them, he gets in trouble. That's not really an NIL contract. That's a talent contract to do what you're doing, hosting the show and producing this content. An NIL contract would be you on the side doing a deal with State Farm to promote State Farm. That would be outside of your deal here. And so what I'm trying to say is you have to understand that Patrick Mahomes' deal with State Farm is an NIL deal. But Patrick Mahomes' deal with the Kansas City Chiefs is a performance deal. It's a salaried contract with the Chiefs. And we need to delineate those things so that when athletes want to go do NIL, they can, and they can make what they can make doing endorsements. But when athletes want to play quarterback or point guard or whatever it is, there's compensation that's tied to them abiding by that contract.
Take the performance out of it, right? Let's just talk about Tennessee and Nico, and I know Blaine's going to follow up with some very specific questions on that situation. But take the performance element out of it, where Tennessee can't say, well, we're going to fire you or pay you more money based on how good you, Nico Iamaleava, perform as quarterback. Isn't there still a contract, like a name, image, and likeness contract that's for a set term? Like, why can't we at least see what the contract is and for how many years it is? Let's just take the NIL example. If Dr. Pepper does a deal with Nico and it's 3 years long and you're getting $8 million, what I've heard reported that his contract was with the University of Tennessee football program, he can't just quit the day before the commercial starts and say, well, no, I'm going to go over to Coca-Cola because this is not a pay-for-play contract. You still have a contract that then Dr. Pepper has legal recourse, right? Does Tennessee not have legal recourse right now, even though they weren't paying for football, they were paying you for your name, image, and likeness? I haven't seen that contract the way I can see Patrick Mahomes' contract.
Right. Well, the thing is you can't see Patrick Mahomes' State Farm contract because it's protected by FERPA.
Okay.
Just like our health information is protected by HIPAA. So he has to voluntarily release that, whereas you can see his Kansas City Chiefs contract because it's a performance contract. So that's why we're in this. I haven't seen the contract either with the Tennessee Collective or whoever was paying him. Maybe they have legal recourse. Maybe they don't.
Okay.
Maybe he owes money back. Who knows what type of language is in the contract? The question from there is would a school sue an athlete? Might hurt recruiting, might hurt some other things. So a lot of people think no is the answer to that. And by the way, the new deals are still going to be NIL deals. And I know we haven't gotten a house settlement, but it'll start later this year. It's a $20 million a year cap. And now the NIL
for all sports, right?
For all sports,
all of them.
And we've seen most schools are going to spend about $15 million of the 20 on football, right? And that's still going to be NIL, but it's from the school to the athlete, not from the collective.
And that can't be performance-based? It can't be, hey, if you throw 12 or more touchdowns, we're going to give you more. If you want to do this or do that, we're going to give you less.
The more performance-based it is, the more they're writing their recipe for employment. You know what I mean? So, like, they're trying to slip it in. I've seen contracts between the schools and the athletes, and it's got things like athlete must be listed on the roster, and things like that. So they're trying to get around it, but it's not what a typical NFL contract would be, which is like, here's your base salary. If you finish top 5 in passing, you get this. If you get us to the playoffs to this round, you get this, right? Like, no, it's not written that way, which is why the coaches are all calling for collective bargaining, because coaches want to hold their players accountable. But they can't hold their players accountable because we're calling this NIL and structuring the contracts as if it's an endorsement deal to play quarterback for the university. And it's not. It's a quarterback deal to play quarterback for the university. So that's the disconnect here. We're not calling a duck. We're calling pay-for-play NIL.
Yeah, that's a great.
Well, do you think, I don't want to know this, do you think this is going to stop anybody from watching college football?
Yeah, I hear everything he said, but I also see, your leading question is right in line with how I think. No, I think I think people are actually watching it more because there's more parity. Now this gets more into football and less into the topic of the conversation, but as a Syracuse New Yorker who came down to Alabama and played some college baseball and stayed, when I got down here, Alabama wasn't very good. Okay. It was interesting for me to watch Saban come in and build what he built. And the thing that I loved about his leadership the most was his ability to get 2s and 3s who could have been 1s anywhere else to come be 2s and 3s and sit on the bench for a couple years before they would get on the field. And the whole sales pitch was, when you get on the field at Alabama, if you can do it and you become a number 1, you're going to the NFL, right? And it was a great pitch and it worked. And I think that's the biggest reason he retired, is because that formula doesn't work anymore. But now those 2s and 3s are going to Tennessee, they're going to Ohio State, they're going to other schools, and there's a little more spread of talent. And the spread of talent, I think, is overriding the distaste of what the game once was and what it should be. I still think the distaste is real, and I think it's an issue, but I think people are watching games because more teams have more talent. And that is something people love about the NFL, especially gamblers. They love single-digit spreads. Most college football weekends still, with the spread of talent, every spread's double digits, right? We need more parity. And I think this is going in that direction. I think that helps with fans.
Well, I've always said, I think the only thing that could kill college football, or not kill college football viewership, but hurt it, is really the only way that the NFL kind of got hurt, if there was some blanket political movement that went on. I'm old school like Cone is, right? I feel like the guys should be paid. I want structure. I want rules. Does it kind of water down the college football? I remember, yes, but best believe this fall, I'm going to be watching all those games the exact same. And I know we do it for a living, but I would still watch it because I love the sport. So it's almost like drinking Coca-Cola to me. I know that there's some parts of Coca-Cola that are bad for me to drink, but you know what? Damn it, dog. You put some Coca-Cola over ice, I'm still going to drink it. But that doesn't mean I don't want what's best for the sport or to try and kind of recapture some of the old school line of thing, because I think it's better for young people as well. But, you know, to the point of that upsets me about this whole situation is that the student athletes, which, you know, the athletes.
You call them athlete-student.
Athlete-student. It's like my
Sonny,
coach I used to work for, you say, hey.
Do we even have to put student in there?
No, not anymore.
Do they have to go to class?
I've always called them college athletes.
Do you have to go to class, or can you just...
Zion didn't.
You can open a lawsuit after that, can't you?
But like, the part that upsets me is, okay, the athletes want it in the business. Okay, I respect that. I get that. But it's like the only, and you explained why, because of the fundamental difference in a true pay-for-play contract that has performance clauses and stuff like that, as opposed to the go show up at here and take pictures for an hour. You know, we'll give you $1 million for that, but really to play quarterback. But it's the only business I've ever seen where there's only negative for the other side. There's not for you. I watch guys that, and we talk about these contracts, just go wherever or can just make whatever decision, or I'll sign here for this deal. But you know what? 6 months later, something else better came along, or somebody pissed me off, I can go somewhere else. No other business with any type of contract, I don't care if it's pay-for-play or if it's NIL, do you have that capability? So I think it's worse for young people because we're teaching them, hey, not only we're going to let you in the business, you can make money now, there's no consequences for your action. Go here, go there,
player's
go
fault?
here, go there.
The leadership's
let me say
No, it's leadership's fault.
Don't hate the player.
Yeah.
And the game.
I get that.
The game has been created by a lack of leadership, and it's not their fault.
And I get
90% of the 4,000 athletes in the portal right now have been told by their coach, you will never play a down at this university. And that's why they're in the portal. It's not all greed in the portal. 10% are in there to test the market. 90% were told to go in. The coaches are taking advantage of the portal too.
Oh, God, it's the easiest way to cut somebody out.
I got told to transfer.
Yeah.
Rich Rodriguez came in, but he did it in a way that was saying, hey, you know what kind of offense we're going to run here.
Yeah.
If you decide to stay, which I did to get my degree from Michigan, thinking that if I'm good enough to make it to the NFL, I can do that from here no matter what kind of offense is being run. And Rich Rodriguez, I thought, did right by me those final 2 years. But one more comment on people turning away from the game. I mean, we cover this every single day. We're putting out social media posts. So I'm hearing from people every day that they are turning away from college football because of the activity that's taking place. I don't know if they're lying to me. I don't know these people. Maybe when Tennessee plays this fall, they're still going to turn it on. I'm just reporting what they're saying to me, which is I'm not going to watch college football anymore. Now, is college athletics, are the sports willing to say, well, this older generation, we're willing to like let them turn college football off to be able to take advantage of a new generation that's coming in, especially with wagering and gambling? Almost every brand in the world would say yes, right? We care about the 18 to 40 demo, and if people 65
drives viewership.
Don't want to watch
gambling and fantasy.
But that's why I brought up the Masters, right? Because the Masters doesn't have the highest payout rate of any golf tournament in the world, and yet it's the most important golf tournament there is because fathers will take their sons. You want to get badges to that tournament. It's a weekend to remember, and you pass this down from generation. I only fell in love with college football because my parents, at a very pivotal age, when I'm 5, 6, and 7, are taking me down to Georgia Southern to watch the spring football blue and white game. If they don't do that in those years, maybe I'm not in love with college football the way I was growing up and really wanted to play that when I went to college. So I'm just saying that we have to be careful, not just in the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. I'm talking about what does the sport look like 20 or 30 years from now.
With the uncertainty surrounding tariffs, families across the country are potentially facing another wave of price increases at the grocery store. But there's good news. GoodRanchers.com is completely tariff-proof thanks to their 100% American supply chain. You'll get stable prices for high-quality meat grown right here in the good old US of A without worrying about tariff-related price hikes. You know the average family throws away $500 worth of meat and seafood every year? Good Ranchers helps you avoid this waste with their vacuum-sealed, individually wrapped cuts that stay fresh for a year in your freezer. Plus, their cuts are pre-trimmed by professional butchers, meaning you'll only pay for meat you'll actually eat. No more trimming 10% off before cooking. You get way more value with every bite. We've all had Good Ranchers for the last 3 years. It's a fantastic product, and it always delivers. And here's an even better offer. Visit GoodRanchers.com right now. Use our code BOOSTER, that's BOOSTER, to get $40 off your order, plus free meat for life when you subscribe. Now, that's a life sentence we can all agree on. Whether it's ground beef, wild-caught salmon, seed oil-free chicken nuggets, or bacon in every box, you get that forever. That's $300 of free meat every year for as long as you stay subscribed. So in a world of constant change, your mealtime can stay consistent and affordable. Visit GoodRanchers.com today. Use code BOOSTER. Get $40 off and free meat for life. Good Ranchers. American meat delivered.
Unfortunately, most of the leaders in college athletics aren't thinking past 3 years from now.
And that's the problem.
Which happens to be
Which is why I say the Masters,
as
they're not
contract.
thinking like that.
You know, their thinking is similar to their contract being up. And that's why it's an industry where nobody wants to be first and everyone will rush to be second. Mm. And we need somebody to step up and be first on this.
How does that happen?
Well, listen.
Jim Cavale.
No, it's not me. It's not me. I've been trying to build a bridge for 20 months now, right? Like 20 months ago, I left a really good situation where I was a C-level executive at Teamworks, building software for college and pro teams, had sold my company to them. I didn't have to do this. I did this because I believe it's what the industry needs. Do I think it's a great business opportunity to build a players association for college athletes to be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness with group licensing and to be able to have a seat at the table to fight for their rights? Like, yes, but I also care about college athletics. And a lot of my former friends, or some still friends who are ADs and commissioners, I want to help them by building a bridge where the athletes and the schools can come together and do this. But right now, there's really only one or two real influential people that can move first. And they're commissioners of, you know, the power conferences. Sure. And they've got to be dead set on like, you know what? Congress is probably not going to help us out in the way we're asking them right now. We need to actually be proactive and come up with a solution that looks like professional sports so that we can take advantage of antitrust exemption that way.
Yeah, well, and that's to me, like you brought up 1A, 1B, and then option 2. Like, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't go to law school. No chance I was getting into that. I just happened to be able to hit a slider. Is there a possibility, and I want to get back to the point I was making earlier, but I want to make sure I ask you this before I forget. Is there a way where you bring up the commissioners, where Tony Petitti, Greg Sankey, even Brett Yormark of the Big 12, say, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create this breakaway league from the NCAA. Get away from the NCAA. It's going to have, let's just run the ground ball out, 44 teams in it, 45 teams in it, 50 teams in it, whatever, made of the top teams. Like this is the top league, Premier League. You want to use a soccer reference for the 9 soccer fans we have out there. Is there a way for them to say, okay, we will do rev share with ESPN, with Fox, that will be distributed to the players as well. You get a certain percentage, obviously, of it, but you are not truly a employee of the university. If anything, you would be an employee of the breakaway league as opposed to university and say, that's how we're going to pay you. And if you want to do an NIL deal, it's a true NIL deal. Like you were saying with Patrick Mahomes and State Farm. But when you sign this paper, you say, all right, I want to play in the best league. I don't want to go to New Mexico State. All right, I want to go to Alabama. And in order to go to Alabama, I got to be part of this league. When I sign that national letter of intent, I am adhering to the rules of this breakaway league, and I cannot sue this breakaway league for this, that, or the other like we have in other countries. Is that a possibility?
Not without collective bargaining.
Not without collective bargaining.
Or an antitrust exemption from Congress.
Damn it.
Yeah, I mean, going back to 1A, 1B, and 2. 1A is an antitrust exemption for leaders to set all the rules. without collective bargaining. 1B is an antitrust exemption with collective bargaining, but non-employment status for athletes. And then option 2 is the athletes become employees and you collectively bargain as protected by the National Labor Relations
On the antitrust exemption from Congress, let's say that happens, would the next logical step, and let's say they do that because these are universities, these are learning institutions, which is fair. That's what they were primarily before college athletics was making hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars. If that happens, is the next logical step that there is an offshoot league or that the UFL becomes a minor league?
That's happening anyways, because at some point, the break-off is going to allow a larger amount of teams to go to market together. Mm-hmm. Who those teams are, how many there are of them, is it all 130 plus FBS teams? Is it just Power Conference? Is it just SEC, Big Ten? Forget about that. There's going to be a break-off, and it's going to be a larger amount of teams, and they're going to go to the market together to get a media deal instead of as separate conferences. Yeah. And they're going to get billions more a year in revenue.
That fight between ESPN and Fox will be, that'll be the biggest.
But how we've seen the G League be for basketball players, do you think that's something we could see for football? If there's an antitrust exemption and college football players can't collectively bargain, do you get a 5-star who's the #1 quarterback coming out say, you know what, maybe I'll go play for the Birmingham Stallions who will pay me X millions per year? So, I mean, this is what Joe Namath did coming out, right? With the AFL
USFL.
Instead of the NFL. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, a couple years after Namath does it, what do you have? AFL, NFL merger, and now it changed the Professional Football League forever.
Right. I mean, I think that a break-off is going to happen at some point because there's just more money in it. And as we've seen, the presidents, while they can't get their head around some things, they can get their heads around more money to the point where Stanford and Cal are on the Pacific Coast, but they're in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they're two pretty prestigious institutions. So the money still drives all of this. As much as we say it's about academics, and there'll be a break-off because there'll be more money, but these current conference deals need to mature and get closer to being up before that happens.
Okay, I want to go back to the earlier point I was making about the athletes. There seems to be this, on one hand, they're like, pay the athletes, pay them, and I get that. I'm cool with that. But then they're like, no, you can't talk bad about them, though. You can't, if they have a bad game, you can't say it. People get all hurt. Or if they make a stupid business decision, like I think Nico's team did, oh, you can't say that because they're just 18, 19. It blows my mind. We will sit here and nitpick an 11-year-old child actor's performance in a movie, yet we can't say that Nico didn't play great last year or you're some horrible person while paying them. Yeah. It absolutely, like the Nico situation, to me, I thought it was a bad business decision.
Sure.
But you can't say that or else you hate kids. And he's like 20 years old. Like it blows my mind, the hypocrisy.
I think that, we, in addition to a players association helping with collective bargaining, a players association also is in place to help anyone who is going to work for the athlete as an advisor, whether it's an agent, a financial advisor. There are certifications and standards and penalties and regulations in the NFL through the NFLPA for agents and financial advisors. And I think, we need that in college sports as well, because I think that a lot of athletes are having a lot of people in their ear right now because of the lack of structure, telling them they can go get more. And whether Nico should have had an agent or his father should have been helping him, or even whether this is a good business decision or not, like those are all things I think you can talk about. But I think also the athlete needs to be empowered with protections that make sure that whoever's advising them, because they are still young, and a 23-year-old NFL player is young too. Like, we've got to protect the athletes from some of the people who've come into the space and actually given them bad advice that they're never going to be able to change. So, and I also think like, a little bit off your topic, but you talked about it earlier too. Like, you want the players to get paid. Obviously, that number keeps going up. But when you look at it in a relative format, coaches are still making way more than the quarterback. I mean, 3 times, 2.5 times, right? That's not how it works in the NFL.
No, it's not.
It's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
So, like, for certain positions, in certain programs, I think this is going to keep going up. And if you want a cap, just like everything else, you got to have collective bargaining. So, This is, I think, just the beginning.
Colin Cowherd makes that point a lot, talking about the percentage of the total roster money you have that's going to coaches rather than the players. I do take issue with one thing that is sort of becoming a public narrative, which is, and you saw Jay Billis talking about this a couple weeks ago, which is don't ever complain about a kid going and playing for his 5th college in 5 years because coaches can leave at any time. I do think there is a difference when a coach is being bought out of a contract. To your point earlier, though, we can't even have that right now with the athletes, though, because they haven't been able to collectively bargain. And in all fairness, I would like for a stricter requirements for coaches to be able to leave schools too. Maybe you can't coach in the same conference that next year, or you have to hire an interim if it's after the spring practice or something. That's just how I personally feel
There used to be rules before Nick Saban got his deal with LSU. The standard was if you leave early for a better job, NFL or even another college, you have to pay money back to the school. Yeah. Jimmy Sexton, as brilliant as he is, changed the whole game and created a buyout system where coaches, when they get fired, can make the money we've seen them make for getting fired, but also that has allowed coaches to take a better job in a lot of cases without the buyout in place. And when the buyout's in place, of course, the other team will pay it, whether it's an NFL team or a college team. And my question is why aren't we doing that? We used to reward small schools for playing big schools by paying them a fee for the game. Well, now, I mean, my guy Andy Kennedy wins at UAB and Yaxel wants to go to Michigan, your school. Why not Michigan pay a buyout for that? You know what I mean? Yeah. That's helping the developer, the mid-majors who are developing talent.
Exactly.
And at the same time, rewarding Yaxel. So, this stuff is all built. This is not novel. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. This stuff is going on, whether it's in the NFL or that analogy might be a little more similar to English Premier League, but with a transfer fee. But this stuff is built. And the guys that are in charge, they're smart. They know that these things are built. Somebody has to go out there first and lead the change for the future. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. And, that's why I said nobody wants to be first. Everyone will rush to be second. I mean, one commissioner, if it's the right person, or even athletic director or president, could come out tomorrow and say, we're going to collectively bargain. And we want to start a new entity for anybody else who wants to collectively bargain. And here's how it's going to work, whatever. I think a lot of them follow. I think a lot of people would follow them. But somebody's got to move first.
Man.
I want to ask about Nico Iamaleava's story specifically here. As we sit here right now, he's entered the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. We don't know where he's going. It was possibly UCLA. I heard maybe that's not happening now. North Carolina and Bill Belichick, and maybe that's not happening. There's some interest from Tulane.
What are the other one?
What's the other one?
Syracuse.
Oh, yeah, Syracuse. We're talking about that.
Hold on. Let's go on.
Yeah. Fran Brown them got a tape.
I want to hear all your thoughts on this,
game.
Nico.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Syracuse, Tennessee.
Aflac. Hold on.
Come on. There's
Hold on. My wife works for Aflac. She'll get mad if I don't say this. Aflac kickoff game.
I'm sorry.
You knew this was going to happen at some point. Wherever Nico went, he was going to play Tennessee at some point.
Well, it's like they do in the NCAA basketball tournament. It's amazing how
I'm not trying to start new rumors. I'm just a Syracuse fan.
No,
I don't know anything about it.
One big thing with me is how did Nico get to this number? What sets the number?
Well, see, that's what it says. There is nothing. There's no performance metric.
Is it other quarterbacks getting paid? Is it a Josh Pate Twitter poll?
We heard that. we heard in some stories, we read that it was Carson Beck's deal. But when you talk to people who are close to Nico, you find out that's not true. Nico was already asking for this number before they went into the CFP. So this conversation has been going on for a while, and
the balls on this guy.
And the argument, I've heard an argument against him with hey, he did an $8 million 4-year deal, and for the first year he redshirted. He didn't even play, and so why does he want 4? And you hear all that stuff, but somebody believed that was his value, and he believed it, and they started this conversation, and they hadn't gotten the reciprocation from the conversations back in December or November or whenever it was, all the way here to April, and camp, or the spring game was about to happen, and they chose the route they chose.
Well, what type of, there's always a ripple effect on the market, right?
There already have been.
The United States
quarterbacks are all getting better deals right now.
That's what I'm saying. But could this be something? What if Nico ends up going somewhere else and he only makes $1 million. Like, will the next guy who's looking at this, who's maybe had a good year, but team didn't make the college football playoff, I mean, is
that's
he
what the
go,
coaches are hoping.
No,
and
I mean,
that's why Dan Lanning said what he said, and that's why Mario Cristobal released the video he released. They better be careful. They better be really careful.
Antitrust, right?
Collusion.
Yeah.
Collusion is a real thing.
That's what I was
And
wondering.
so,
Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a slippery slope. I would have not made those statements public if I were them. I think that's dangerous. And but you're right. The market will figure itself out, and some repercussions are quarterbacks are getting a little bit more to stay and know that they're going to be the quarterback at that school right now while we're talking.
Cone, oh boy, before the college football playoffs said, I want more money. And then the day before the spring game, dips on the team.
Disappeared.
Goes through spring.
Still can't believe it.
The whole winter workouts, you know this, winter workouts, you're going to,
realistically,
you can call him a lot of things.
Realistically, he gave him time. Like
he
gave him time.
He did, but golly, you clipped him.
I was so bullish on him taking that next step this year. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask on your point, because I was thinking this too. What if let's just say every Power 5 coach, Power 4 coach gets together and says, we got to send a message. Let's don't, like, our school needs a quarterback. We'd be willing to pay Nico Iamaleava this much money, but let's just say no to not set the precedent that schools can be leveraged like this in spring practice. Antitrust? I mean, what can legally be done against the school?
Right now,
we're in a position where the money you were paying wasn't performance-based and pay-for-play.
Correct. Yeah, I think that you would see a lawsuit from Nico.
Shocker.
Yeah. So, it would be pretty justified. I mean, collusion's a really serious thing that you hear a lot of commissioners talk about. I mean, they even have lawyers, the SEC Big Ten meetings, they were public about the fact that we're going to have lawyers in the room to make sure that there's no collusion.
But if there's no contracts, though, how could you, for the same reason that the player can do whatever they want, if 6 coaches get together and they call each other and they're like, hey, I guess use the word
collectively bargain.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, like, what, right now, if there was ever a time for you to do it, what are you going to go in there and sue them for? You're not an employee, right? You're a student at the school. Maybe your NIL deals, you got to show up and eat, 3 Twizzlers in front of the language arts class or whatever. I don't know what goes on there. But, like, is this the only time the coach could get away with that, as opposed to if legislation does happen and there is antitrust, now it's collusion? Because if you have 6 guys in the coaches call each other and they all hate Alabama in the SEC and they're like, hey, you need to do this to beat Alabama. I mean, Alabama can't sue them for colluding. Like, is there a lawsuit there to be had right now with the rules?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the exact answer to that. I just know that this is a time where almost any lawsuit is possible. You think you should play 9 years eligibility, just because you have earning potential, you might have a lawsuit there. You think that you shouldn't have to go to school while you're playing and you should be able to go to school later, you might have a lawsuit there. Like, anything kind of goes right now because there's no rules. I think that's the bigger point. And that's why I understand the frustration with Nico that you're talking about and that the fans have talked about. But I think you really got to think about the system that we're in and the fact that there's no rules and why this was possible. And that's really at the root. And he did give them time.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing too. And so you got to think of the whole situation and the relativity of coaching salaries versus quarterback salaries. And
there's blame to go around. There's plenty of blame to go around. But, like, to me, yes, the system sucks. It's the worst. Like, because there are no rules. But also, maybe, Nico may have gave him time, but dude, maybe you're not worth that amount of money. Like,
but that's
I could sit here and go up to, somebody be like, hey, listen, I'm gonna give you 6 months to give me $8 more million. I may not be worth $8 more million.
I'm trying to.
Like, I just want to live in a world.
With our boss.
I just want to live in a world where we have rules. But if we're not gonna have that world for a while, I want to be able to say, listen, the way NIL's done now is crazy. It's nuts. But also, this was a very stupid move, business-wise, by this guy, and I feel like we can't.
Let's see how it plays out.
I was just sitting down with an SEC quarterback for lunch, and basically this came up, and we both agreed that the coaches are going to try to scare the players because of this situation.
I would.
But at the same time, like, I don't know that the players are very scared because they have still all the leverage in regard to they can just leave and go somewhere else. And, if Nico won his first game, would this be a different conversation, meaning in the playoff against Ohio State? Yeah, it probably would. You know, if he had a couple better games down the stretch with this, yeah, maybe. Like, I've heard all those arguments, but for whatever reason, he felt that this was a reasonable ask to make for whatever reasons those are. We can't tell because we can't see the contract.
Yep,
Here's another thing. A coach could sign Nico. It could be $1 million, but they could say it was $4 million because you'll never know, okay?
Yeah.
So, like, it's just, it's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
It just feels like, maybe it's just me, but people are asking for loyalty over money. And at the end of the day, if the rules are the way they are, which there are none, I don't blame Nico. If he thinks he's worth that much, which I don't know how he got to that number, but going to test himself out in the free market. And if Nico wanted to, and I don't think I'm wrong on this, but if he saw the market and it's not what he wanted, he could reach back out to Tennessee and see if he could come back to Tennessee.
I don't think
And if you're Tennessee and Josh Heupel with an apology, you know, would you not take Nico back?
No. With an apology, you got to give me $4 million to come back. That's what I'm saying. Because, again, that's the greatest part about football is at the end of the day, like, it is the ultimate team sport, and it's just, you can't look weak. You can't look weak as a head coach. That's why I was shocked when the offensive lineman and his name, is it Proctor? Went from...
Yeah, Caden Proctor.
Caden Proctor went from Bama to Iowa, then they let him back to Bama. And that's a totally different situation. He's from Iowa. It would make you look weak.
Well, are you going to look weak when you're 5-5?
Well, you got a great excuse. Josh Heupel's got the best built-in excuse ever right now. People will still be pissed. If the Merksinger kid's terrible, look, they can go get somebody out of the portal. Let's see what happens. But, like, again, that's why I did the meme of the superhero from The Boys when he lasers that guy and everybody claps. Josh Heupel just lost his starting quarterback, his superstar starting quarterback, and all the Tennessee fans are like, great job, Josh. Yeah. Stand your ground. I just don't. If it was me,
I get it. That's all fun and games until you're down 10 against Arkansas.
Well, did you see what Nico did against Arkansas last year? I don't know if he can help him.
One more comment on the idea of, hey, go ask for as much money as humanly possible at any point in your life. I thought the most important thing you said today is the tutelage for these young guys and it was the point that I brought up earlier, you know, long-term financial success versus short-term gratification. And I saw this post this week that there's one 5-star quarterback from Nico's year that hasn't transferred yet. And it's Arch Manning. And he's yet to start a full season at Texas. Now, I understand his financial situation is a little bit different with the family that he comes from. But at the same time, I think you can tell that the Mannings went in with a very specific plan for Arch. With his recruitment, the way they've handled everything, it's no surprise that he's the only 5-star quarterback from that class that hasn't transferred yet.
Yeah, I just feel like if Arch Manning asked for $4 million, they're giving it to him.
Well, Arch Manning doesn't need $4 million.
Yeah, I know, but he just
calls uncle.
He has.
Yeah, I think that there's outlier stories. Ty Simpson as well at Alabama. You know, I mean, sat through backing up 2 quarterbacks, and now he's going to get his shot. It looks like. So you know, there's stories like that out there, and I think there'll be a lot more of those stories once there's a structure, and once tampering is actually a real thing. Like, tampering's not a real thing right now. They're not employees. It isn't tampering. Anybody can talk to anybody. There's no rules.
Well, I love that's how they have dead periods.
Yeah, dead periods.
You think a coach is like, hey, look, I'm going to call this 4-star defensive tackle. Oh, wait, it's the dead period. I can't. No.
Or even transfer portal. It doesn't really start tomorrow. It's already started. Yeah. So it's like
never stops.
The point is like to rein it back and have a lot of these important values that we're talking about reinstated. It has to go both ways.
For sure.
And we've commercialized revenues. We have not fully commercialized expenses. To do that, you have to have what's being paid to the athletes be collectively bargained, but also the parameters around how they can transfer or not, how they must go to school, how they must do everything you expect them to do in the experience. And there's a world where that comes back a little bit and it gets reined back to a place where I think a lot of your concerns are addressed for the benefit of the athlete just as much as for the benefit of the school.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want it to be great both ways.
Yeah.
I just know what's going to happen. And you brought up, as long as these NCAA people are involved, it's going to be like when the insurance adjuster comes to my house. He's going to try and find ways to not make them give me all the money that I feel like they should be able to give me. And to me, that's what's going to be the biggest problem. But Jim, for this I knew this conversation was going to be good.
It exceeded my expectations.
It's always great when you get to see your brother. Tell everybody, I mean, you do so many things, but kind of tell everybody if they're interested kind of in what you got going on and influence and all that stuff, where they can find you.
Yeah, so you just go to athletes.org and you can learn more about the Players Association for College Athletes. That's what we've built. We've got 4,200 members that are current college athletes.
Awesome.
Mainly power conference, football, basketball, but we've got athletes from all sports. And we serve them with a bunch of free benefits. Membership's free for them right now. We're not collectively bargaining for them, so we don't have any member dues or anything. And they get free legal, free accounting, free mental health, free background checks on agents. But also we gather them a lot in person at the CFP. We had 50 power conference schools represented with players in a room, meeting and talking about compensation, talking about health and safety, talking about transfer rules. And we also engage them through our app, which polls and surveys are a way for us to get their voice out there. So we're working really hard to organize athletes and be able to collectively negotiate for them so that these rules can be set. And so just follow our journey. You can follow us on social too. It's just athletes.org, and follow me, Jim Cavale. But we really want to see the industry get to a place that I think a lot of your fans want to see it get to, but also a place that allows the athletes to get what they deserve, not just when it comes to money, but with the full holistic experience that college athletics can be for them as they go into their adult life. And to do that, a lot of these things need to be addressed.
Well, nobody has to be the bad guy. Let's just strike a good deal. Maybe the art of the deal. Jim, great to see you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it, guys.
Thank you guys for joining us on Locker Room Talk. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll check you tomorrow.